the notes for me?
Yep. Yeah. If anyone else want to join also and fix my typos, will be great too.
Okay. We are live. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining to the Node.js Security Working Group meeting. Before start, does anybody have any announcement? I do have just one that is slightly related to the security itself. We are working on the next security release for Node.js. So stay tuned. It should be released today, I guess, hopefully. I sent in the chat the minutes, so please include your name there, just to know that you participated and took some notes, okay? And so we have new faces here. So if someone wants to present, Iago, do you want to present yourself? Just a quick introduction if you want. If you don't want, that's fine too, okay? Okay, not sure Iago is here. Okay, Lee Holmes?
Yeah, I'm here with Robert, and we're here from Microsoft talking about Node.js and code integrity.
Okay. Robert's the same, I assume, right?
Yeah, I work with Lee Holmes, so I'll be leading our part of the discussion today.
Okay. And Marco?
Hey, I'm Marco. I work at Nearform, so I'm a colleague of Rafael, and I will be joining this working group. So yeah, you will see my face here.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. ZB, we all know you, I guess.
Yeah, I can tell you that I'm now doing security at MetaMask, and I'm working on the Lavamote and Endo projects. So this meeting is interesting to me, and I do hope to be able to come to it regularly now.
All right. So before I start, we have a regular workflow that to look at the vulnerability review on the Node.js dependency vulnerability assessments. And looks like we don't have anything yet there. The NPM vulnerability on Node.js 14 will be fixed in the upcoming security release. So we are good.
Yep, hopefully those will all, hopefully will be a lot less things tagged there after the security release.
Yes. So I just would like to move the discussion about policy integrity with Windows to the top, as we mentioned previously. So the issue 856. Robert, do you want to give an introduction?
Hi, yeah, my name is Robert, and I've been working at Microsoft helping introduce code integrity to a bunch of interpreters. And we decided to start taking a look at Node because it's one of the, I guess, biggest interpreters out there. So, so after investigating Node, we came upon the policy integrity feature that is already in Node. It seems like y'all took some time to think about ensuring the integrity of the files that Node executes, and this has been implemented using policy integrity. For those that don't know, the policy integrity is basically a large JSON file, and in it you can include the hash values of all the file that Node is supposed to run. And when Node is launched, you can launch it with a command line option that points to this integrity file. So if Node tries to execute a file that's not contained in the policy, it'll throw an error. Or if a file in the policy file has a hash mismatch, it'll also throw an error. And to safeguard the policy file itself from modification, you can also pass the hash of the expected policy file as an additional command line option. And what we found was that this can potentially be problematic because an attacker on the system can potentially modify one of the files in the policy, and then modify the and then regenerate the hash of the policy file and restart Node with a valid policy file and a valid hash, even though the attacker modified it. So what we did was poke around and try to root trust in something that's trusted by the system, and not something that's trusted as a command line option. So instead, we made a prototype of Node that that rather than passing the hash of the policy file as a command line option, next to the policy file, you'll find a PKCS7 detached signature of the policy file. And that detached signature was generated using a certificate that's trusted by the system's code integrity policy. So that mitigates the risk of an attacker modifying a file and then modifying the and then regenerating the policy file and then regenerating the policy file's hash and starting Node with like a completely valid flow. So we presented a brief demo of that, I believe, last year or maybe a little longer ago. There was some platform work in order to get this productionalized and ready to go, or the APIs productionalized and ready to go. And recently we've released them into builds of Windows, and you can start building, you can start using these new APIs that have been surfaced now. So we're on the path to, so we got, people seemed excited that about this kind of linkage of trust from the command line into the actual system code integrity policy. So we can make these changes and present them as a PR for y'all to look at. But before we do that, there are a couple other loose ends that I wanted to tie off, or at least kind of understand before we go ahead and ship that PR out. So let me just take a break and ask, does the scenario I'm describing seem to make sense? And does this solution seem reasonable to everyone still?
I do have a question. The attack you mentioned consists in the attacker having the access to the file system, and then he updates the file, and then he regenerates the policy.json. That's it, right?
That's correct. That's the attack we're describing.
Wouldn't it be solved by just creating the policy.json as read only?
There are, that could mitigate against it, but there are situations in which, like, let's say you have like a portable application that is that's built on Node, and someone then, like an attacker, just takes it on their system, modifies it, and then redistributes it to people. That attack still exists because the files have been modified from their original from the original author's intent. But if they are signed by, like, I don't know, ABC company's signing certificate, then they can at least verify that the file, that the application that's being distributed was signed by the original authors.
Okay. Yeah, I
One
can.
thing to think about with code integrity on operating systems is that part of the threat model is that the attacker, and that this isn't like the attacker as in somebody attacking a website. This is, for example, somebody who's compromised like the infrastructure, hosting a website or something like that, and they're trying to, you know, tamper with the application to now turn it into a credit card skimmer, or maybe they're, another example is using Node or Electron-based apps on high security hosts. And so, you know, a lot of companies, Microsoft included, have these secure workstations that have everything locked down, where the assumption is that somehow malware got on the machine, and malware is totally capable of making something, turning off the read-only bit as well. And so finding a way to bind code integrity policy to something other than things that admins can easily change. And in Windows, it's done via code integrity policies, which can be based on signed policies and signing certificates. Which hopefully, I mean, if they've taken over your secure development machine, but hopefully they haven't taken over your company's code signing certificates.
Oh, I see Bradley is in the meeting and wants to talk. Hey, Bradley, are you there?
Yeah, so I understand this solution. When we talked about it last year or the year before, I don't remember first time. It
Yeah.
didn't sound like we'd have a sidecar file. What's the mitigation for an attacker deleting the sidecar detached certificate?
So that's something else that I wanted to discuss, because right now this feature is enabled via command line options, and like a way to bypass this entire thing is just launch Node without these command line options and hope that you just, as the sysadmin, you just kind of hope you have the monitoring that's watching out for it. I wanted to kind of brainstorm solutions where we could have Node secure by default, whether or not that's in the Node main branch, or if there's a fork of Node, like a secure Node that has a lot of these security features enabled by default, and you can't disable them by just omitting a command line option or something along those lines. I think that is a slightly larger discussion, but I would like to kind of get started on that and see if y'all had any ideas about ways we could address that scenario.
I think that might be a separate discussion, but
Okay.
That's certainly possible. Various companies do that, actually. That's kind of their business, so it's certainly doable. But for the sidecar file, the detached certificate, a file system only attack is much more reasonable sounding to me than gaining full control of the CLI used to execute something, from the Windows services. I think it's good to not have to define the CLI, because that's some manual hookup that's really kind of gross. But I just don't know right now how to do this in a way that doesn't require less attack surface area to compromise it. Does that make sense? So deleting the detached certificate would be a way to remove this, and then modifying the policy. That's only requires file system access.
Yeah, that's
Modifying
correct.
both the CLI and the file system to do the attack you're talking about is a little more difficult.
I think the assumption would be that if you delete the detached signature, then it fails safe and refuses to run the application or the attacker supplied input.
I think the other thing, in my understanding, is you're not so much worried about modifying existing command line invocations, but just being able to run Node at all. Basically being able to run Node when it wasn't intended by the person who configured the system. So it's not that you'd have to modify an existing command line thing. It would just be, I'm just going to run it with whatever command line options I want if I can find the binary on the system. Is that right or not?
Yeah, that is definitely a concern too. And yes.
Because my understanding from a year ago was it wouldn't be a file that they would modify. It would be some Windows secure storage somewhere. that mapped the executable to the policy integrity somehow.
Not entirely. So the file itself is a detached signature that is mapped to the code integrity policy on the system. So
Okay.
that is the linkage itself. It's just like the node executable has a signature that's trusted by the code integrity policy system, and we just need but that signature is embedded within the node executable itself. Node takes over and with its policy and starts doing what it needs to do. And sorry, sir. Once I'm getting ahead of myself. So Node will then, when launched with these secure options, will then take the policy and the signature itself, and then ask the system if if the signature file itself, if the signature is valid and trusted by the system, and if the policy file has been modified from the hash that's stored within the signature.
Okay, so it sounds like for this to be successful, you most likely do actually need a separate distribution that has these on by default. Is that correct?
That's the conclusion I came to while I was kind of poking around in this area. I was wondering if any of you have any other insights into that, or any alternative conclusions, but that seems like the most reasonable way about it.
So at least in this threat model, it sounds like modification of the binary itself is out of scope because it already has to have a check for this integrity, correct?
I'm not sure what you mean by that. Sorry.
We have a hand up. Let's get to that.
Oh, please go ahead.
Michael, you were first.
Okay. Just very quickly, I just want to mention, like, in terms of the model of having like a binary where this is turned on by default, I think the project, personal opinion, but like, I think the project would accept changes so that you had the option to build that way. But having the project ship additional binaries, I think like we've explored that for many different reasons, and like we only have so much capacity, and we just can't, we've never convinced ourselves that we could ship additional binaries for the different reasons. So I think, you might get the changes into core where you have a build option, but then like somebody like Microsoft would have to take on building and shipping that if they wanted that to be available for somebody, for the general people to download, versus it coming from the node.js.org. So that's my take on, past discussions. Obviously it could be wrong on that one, but I just wanted to throw that in as part of it. So ZB.
Yeah, so I wanted to address everything below shipping a separate binary. So for this to be at least a tiny bit more secure than the existing approach where we pass a command line option, it seems like there would need to be a command line option specifying that node needs to demand the existence of the signature file. And that means we're not down to a situation where someone can exploit a vulnerability in the application itself on the server, find a prototype pollution somewhere, or a path traversal, get the file removed and crash the process to get it restarted. And now the policy is not protected by any signature. If we had a flag restarting the process simply by crashing it with user input, would not be an issue, because Node would still have the information that it's supposed to expect the signature file. Anything better than a command line option that we could come up with that's an indication to expect the signature is a good idea. Or we could also let Node make assumptions about the policy itself. So if the policy file exists at all, the policy could include its own signature. So we're not signing the entire file by hashing its content binary, but we're taking the meaningful content, signing it, and appending the signature as an additional JSON field. That could work, and that would mean if Node sees a file named policy, it would know it has to use it and it has to validate the signature. No additional files involved in that. And for most cases, the deployment, especially in the cloud environment, cloud native, you could make this file read only then, and it would be impossible to modify it, which kind of deals with most of the issue anyway, if you make it harder. But what I'm trying to introduce here is a situation where Node, the default binary, would know that it has to look for a policy and a signature.
I'm not sure that'll work unless the signature is required, in which we'd need to have the signature signing infrastructure available for any environment that uses this.
We could still use the previous mechanism, which is the checksum of the contents of the policy as one of the options. So
but
I
that would
meant
invalidate
any mechanism.
That invalidates things, so it's still just a file system attack. A user could have an exploit where they get file system access and you just generate the digest of SHA-512 or something. Like it needs the actual signing and trust infrastructure that Microsoft is proposing here, if you want to do that.
So if such infrastructure is available on the operating system, could we make Node require its use?
That would be more a question for how Microsoft feels.
But I think it's potentially back to, I doubt that would be the default.
Yeah.
So one thing
Right, like,
that I was trying to
go
get to is we're talking about all these files which are potentially, you know, exploitable by writing to them or something of that nature. But it sounded like in the original discussion, there's an integrity check on the executable itself. And so if the executable itself, which we do have a pinned friendly executable, we've tried to ship an archive loader way in the distance past, like Python does. We could append something to the end of the executable file and still have that integrity generated afterward. Is that correct from the Microsoft side, that the integrity check would include any tailing things after the PEM? Or not PEM, what is it on Windows? Sorry.
The PE header, or
the entire standard executable. So people append zip files in various languages and other environments on the end of a standard executable to basically do bundling or packaging, but you can do the same thing with any kind of appropriate structure. So if you were to append something that says, hey, this version of Node mandates all policies be enabled all the time, all executable policies have to have a signature. It has to be from a key infrastructure, not just a digest, that kind of stuff. You can include whatever metadata you want. That would prevent needing a second binary.
I believe that is possible. I think that, yeah, that section of the basically, yeah, that section is signed over when you generate when you sign the node executable. I'd have to double check though.
Yeah,
Let me
because
write
there
that
is some
down.
go ahead.
there is some related work to that going on, and there's like a single executable application effort for adding adding additional sections, like basically from the shipping binaries, being able to add in an additional section. And if that section is recognized when Node starts up, it says, oh, yeah, I'm a single executable application. I'm going to run some code. I think what Bradley's saying is similar approach here is like, you basically take the shipping binaries, you add another section. That's what's signed in terms of like the signed node binary that you have, and then Node would say, oh, I found this extra section. I'm going to enforce that you have to have the policy stuff turned on. Is that right, Bradley?
Yeah, so instead of doing what they're talking about in the single binary, this would be like having mandated options.
Mhm.
Right, but through an additional section. So instead of putting code that
Most
says,
likely, yes.
yeah, write this code, it would be add these command line options without, in a way that you can't remove them.
Correct.
Yeah, that actually sounds interesting. That would provide part of what the ask was in terms of like, you could use the shipping binaries. It would still mean that you would need to take those shipping binaries, process them, and like create your new sign binary, which is what you would want people to install on your system, but you wouldn't necessarily have to build Node itself.
Correct. And this kind of approach is susceptible to appended attacks, where you append an extra section to invalidate previous sections. So it does need that signing that they were talking about earlier.
Right, the binary needs to be signed in some way so that they know you haven't modified it to remove the section or something like that.
Okay. That seems, you said that this is in the works. Is there like in the works as in planning stages, or is there like a small early implementation of it that I could play with?
There's a
Let me
pull
find
request
you the
already, right?
PR. There's an open PR to land.
I found it here. I will send it.
Okay, yeah, if you have it, just throw it in.
Okay, I have to go. I'm sorry, everybody.
Thank you, Bradley. Thank you for
Yeah.
joining.
Bye.
Yeah, thank you for the input.
So basically the pull request is the following one. I will send in the chat. This is this includes the initial support for a single executable. Well, I think we need to move forward in the next item in the agenda, but I would like to see to see some updates in the issue you created, Robert, based in
Okay.
your further discoveries, so we can help in the next meeting, or at least giving some ideas asynchronously. I think
Okay.
that's indeed a good option. And well, I was discussing with Bradley on private this week about making policy out of experimental, and looks like this is a good discussion to have now, this integration on Windows. So before moving it to stable, and well, basically I'm planning to open a tracking issue for the next week, just to make sure that we are aligned in the next actionables before moving it to stable. But yeah, very good discussion.
Okay, sounds good. And just to confirm, just the preferred method of communication for y'all will be via the GitHub issue that I have open.
Yeah, pretty much. If you want, you can tag Bradley directly in the issue, so he will receive the notifications, and yeah, he's very active there.
Awesome. Sounds good. Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next item in your agenda is the automation of security release process, the issue 860. Basically, I created a pull request. It's not ready yet, but I wrote a pull request We'll send the chat as well. This allows the releaser to use git node release dash dash security dash dash prepare, and then it will create the proposal one on the private side. I still need to include some tests and do it in different steps. Pretty much the same as we do on git node continuity or git node abort, you know, like the breaking point, the checkpoints. I'm looking to it, but in theory, after landing that, I'm planning to create another pull request to make git node land on the private side as well, and then we just update this pull request. But yeah, not too much to share. I just want to mention that I'm working on that on my free time. Yeah.
Is quick question, like that git node release, once that's possible, does it move us towards the point where like there could be an action in the private repo that basically we say run this action and it actually kicks off that for all the releases? You know, maybe you would say in the action, you know, we need security releases for 16, 18, and 14, and it would kick those off.
Yeah, absolutely. That's my intention. I was talking with Beth, and well, first we are going to test it on the private side, but after a lot of improvements, I'm pretty sure that the release, all the release, regardless of security or not, can be an action.
Okay, excellent.
Okay. The next issue is the add OSSF scorecard. I know actually is assessment against best practices, but it includes the OSSF scorecard, right? So I know that Ulysses and Thomas was working on that. Do you want to start, Ulysses?
Oh yeah, I want to start maybe with the I think it's the next issue. Well, I don't remember which of those, but yeah, one of the tasks that I have from the previous meeting was to create a little script to collect the scorecard metrics for several projects and, you know, to summarize them somehow on a README. Also, if it's possible to compare with, you know, previous reporting, so you know if it was better or not. So I created this GitHub action. Let me share the link here and potentially my screen also, so I can show you if you are happy with the idea. I need to iterate it a little bit. Not sure I can share. Oh yeah, it's the green big button. Fantastic. Okay, now you should see my screen. So yeah, this is the GitHub action that I created. In general lines, what it does is creating this kind of reporting. So it's a markdown simple table with the repository that you want to track, the score that you have currently, the date of the current score. Let me make this a little bit bigger. And basically the difference between the previous report and an access to the report, which is the official OpenSSF page where you can see the full details, you know, like why you have less or more scores, so you can check out all the details. Also, if you want, it can create an issue with, you know, the changes on the project. So if you have the same, let's say you have 0, so it is not, but if you have less or more, you can see it here. That's more or less the idea. Right now, in order to work, you need to define the scope of the projects. So it's going to be something like that. I think this is very prone to errors and be outdated easily, you know, as soon as you start to add more projects to your organization, so you forgot about them. So my next iteration will be to remove this step, you know, and making just an additional feature here, say like, yeah, I'm interested on, you know, auto scope this organization or that other organization. So it can be multiple organization, and it's going to, you know, check if obviously. So if there is a positive response, then I will keep it in the list. If there is no positive response, I might keep it or remove it on the list, or I will see that how I make that logic. But basically, that's the idea. They will even auto-generate the scope. So in terms of the pollution for the repo, it's going to also generate a JSON file where it's storing the current score and the previous score if available. We can add a limit if we see that there are a lot. Yeah, just for comparison. So you don't have any kind of external dependency, you know, database or something, just a JSON. You also can request the maximum number of parallels when you do the HTTP request. So let's say if you have 100 projects to track, then you can do 10 at the same time, or 20, or so on. Or I'm not very sure of the limits of the API actually, so I don't want to, mess up. So yes, basically you can put your own limits. If you don't want to use high permissions, because that's the little bit tricky here, you need some high permissions in terms of I need to write content, right? Because you need to update the files and commit them and so on, and also issues. But if you are not interested on doing that, or let the GitHub action doing that, what you can do is remove the permissions. Don't ask for the auto generation of the issue, and don't ask for the commit or the auto push. So you can do it afterwards with the typical additional action with run. So you can run the push and the commit and so on. So you don't have to necessarily give the permissions. All that seems okay. That is the approach. What do you think?
That's great. That's very good. I'm just wondering, for instance, we should have it on a dedicated repository, at least in the security working group repository, right? So we can point to some like Unity, even the node.js itself, and it will trigger the main open SSF action, and then generate the score, and then we'll know about it, right? That's the workflow. I'm wondering, there is a way to, instead of having a cron, a schedule to run the action, we run it based on release. For instance, after the release of Unity, I want this action to be triggered, but I don't think it will be possible having this action on the security working group. It should, it will only be, I think it will be feasible only if the action lives in the Unity repository, right?
I think you can trigger from Unity report and send like a post request to this GitHub action. So you trigger this one. You have some kind. I need to explore that idea, but yeah.
It is possible to trigger an action from a different repository. It requires a GitHub token that would have access to both repositories.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but it seems too complex for, I don't know how valuable is it, right? I mean,
aside of that, we can dispatch manually, but yeah, that doesn't solve. I mean, at least for MVP.
Well,
but yeah.
For me, that's also I think we should include it at least on the security working group repository, and include Unity as one of the projects, just for to track it down, before moving to the bigger project like Node.js. And I remember that Thomas, we merged an action.
Yes.
To do that, right?
Yes.
What is the outcome of it?
Yeah, if we go into, let me check to share the screen. I think it's okay. You have my screen.
Yes.
Yep.
Just increase a bit. Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
Yep.
Yeah. Sorry. So yeah, if we go here in security, code scanning. So we show scorecard, show all the warnings we get. And yeah, like I guess in the previous meeting, we're already seeing this, that we can just open it and see why we have that warning, like see what we could do to remediate. We have a lot of some information and help to remediate, and so yeah.
Okay. That's good.
That's it. Yeah, not already, and and you can go and check all of them. Yeah.
So the action that Ulysses built is more for monitoring, and the one that you added to the repository is more unactionable, right? Like the Ulysses just to measure. Okay, Unity goes down, so we go to the second action. Okay, that's the thing is missing, so we need to fix that. That's correct.
The scorecard action is will generate security warning, or I don't know how is it tell, I think they call this code scaling warning, or I don't know in GitHub how they call this, but yeah, it will generate warning for the maintainers, and what Ulysses is doing is to monitor to
That's very good.
all scores. And yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's
that's good. What do you think, Michael?
Yeah, adding to the previous discussion, like for Ulysses, I think it would be good if you had the option to say, I want to include like at least warn for repositories that don't have it enabled. So, for example, as somebody looking through the whole project, if we create a new repo and it's got a really low score, we probably want the TSC to at least be aware and say, yeah, okay, we don't care about the score in that repo. So whether it's like a warning that says, like you don't have it enabled for this set of repos, or and maybe something that says, well, okay, I can exclude repos so I don't get that warning, right? And that way, like somebody creates a new repo, it's not in the exclude list, pops up that says like, here's the scores for the ones you're monitoring. Oh, and by the way, there's these new ones which you don't actually have it turned on for, would be a useful.
Fantastic. Yep. Yeah, that's okay. And also, side note, I think it's a good feature, so I will work on that idea. And there is also a side note that can be interesting. You can monitor the scorecard of dependencies as well. So you can, include in the list of the scope that you want, other project where we might not have the option to actually see the security tab, we can see what's going on, because this is going to tell you things like, the branch protection has been disabled in this dependency. So you're aware of that kind of thing. Also can be interesting in terms of tracking others' dependencies.
Yeah, I mean, this would be great, for example, on pull requests on dependencies on Node. So you can, like, if a dependency is updated, you can run it and check if if the security score changed and whatever. So yeah,
like a blocker, right?
Yes.
Okay. Is Nick does it?
Sorry?
I will say yes, Nick. I think can do it.
Yeah.
I think.
Just wondering. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, not sure about Node itself, but I mean, at least any Node.js project for sure, and Dockerized project and so on. So I think it will probably, we can check it out.
So I think would be great to include it on the security working group and tag the Undici, as I said. And then, we can, for the next meeting, we can work on the problems that we saw on the code scanning from only the security working group repository. We make the pull request, make it green, like make it 9 at least of score, and then we move forward. I think that's a good move,
Yeah, that's okay. So we are happy if I do a pull request with this, including this action with a dispatch or a cron job for UDT and maybe Node.js itself. So we keep only 2 dependencies, no auto fancy, nothing like that, just the version that is. And when I have the rest of the changes, we try to upgrade to see at the organization level how it works, so dependencies and so on, and we can enrich so it doesn't go out of control.
You mean the pull request to the security working group?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense to me. I'm just not sure about how it's going to work with the Node.js code base, because I think the action will take some time, right?
Actually, it's quite fast, because I'm not running the test in the action. I'm just checking the API. So,
but the API like have a cache or something. Okay, they could run it in the night builds or something like that, right?
But I think initially, isn't it going to tell us that like the scorecard isn't turned on for Node?
I can see Node there, so I think.
Okay, because they're running it themselves against Node. Yeah, okay, I got it. Right.
Yeah,
it's not something that we need to turn on.
Yeah, it's nothing from your side, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, I have to say that some of the, at least the date that I'm fetching on the API are related to November this year. So I'm not sure if just because they are my repos as example, or it's also in other repos. So I will check it out with other repos to see if there is a freshness issue,
the
and I
thing
will
is,
report it.
the thing is, they are the cron running, but it doesn't work right now. They are
Oh.
disused, and so they try
see.
to fix it, but it doesn't run anymore. So the data is quite old now.
Yeah.
Would
Okay.
that
But
data
if
be,
we, yeah, sorry.
as I say, would that data be updated if we enable the action on Node itself? Like, does part of running it for ourselves push it to that database?
I think it is. I
Yeah.
think it is
Yeah,
because
yeah,
we
you-
submit the binary. Yeah, you have the option to post to the API, and it's what happened on the action they provide. So I think
Okay,
can
so
solve
longer
the problem.
term, we can make the data fresh for the repos we control anyway.
Yep.
Okay. Good to understand.
So in your action, Ulysses, I think it might be good to at least show I don't know if they provide it, but the hash of the last commit where the scorecard run, because we might the report can show something that is out of date.
Yeah, that's
I think
a good
also
one.
saying the date, like the hash
Yeah.
is good info, but like the date, this was last updated on
Yeah.
February 13th. That's something like
Yeah.
that for me. The hash I wouldn't be able to tell, but the date I can say, oh, that's
Yeah.
old.
Yeah, maybe I can use the hash to build the link to the project
yeah,
at that
I
moment. So I will put that on the date. So when you click on
Mm.
the date, you will jump to that moment or something like that.
In the payload, I think they return in the repository key, they return the commit, the hash to the commit. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very impressive, guys. I like it. I mean, I think that this will be easier than I thought.
Yeah. Yeah, me too.
All right, so moving on. Does anybody have any other question?
So
No?
do we have to open a pull request on Undici to add I don't remember. Does they have a scorecard enabled on Undici?
You mean the code scanning?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think you can mention Matteo in the issue.
Okay.
And ask him to enable it. Yeah. All right. So the next issue is the issue 7991 is the permission model. I have good news to share here. Actually, not so good. The pull request is ready. I have fixed it. I have addressed all the issues. It's working at least on Windows. I have spent, I don't know, a whole week just configuring a Windows server. It was a very good. It was very good experience, and fixed a lot of things. So it should be good now. Like the CI should be green. I just waiting for the CI lockdown to spin up again. We have some approvals. I would like to have your approvals or your reviews on that too. So I will send the pull request here anyway. But there is a question about from Tobias about this model. Just need to look to the comment itself to answer. I don't have time to do it now, so I'm delaying it until the release, the secret release. But the pull request is ready. Like whether it lands or not, it's another topic. But the pull request is ready. That's it from my side on this topic. Well, we don't have any. Okay, we have another item in the. Okay, there's one thing that I remember. I skipped. Sorry, the automate update of all dependencies. The issue 828, and I remember Marco was working on something related to this issue, right? That is the maintaining document for
ng HTTP2.
yes, and HTTP2. I know that this was approved, right?
Yes, it was approved, and it seems there is the script that automates the update. It's not working. This was yeah, I will have a look at it. I will see what's the problem. And yeah, I haven't had time yet.
Okay. Yeah, but that's good. That's a good move. Yeah, because it was stale somehow since Facundo left. So it's important to keep going with this initiative, which is very important for us. Well, anyway, thank you everybody for joining. I think that we finished all the agenda. It was good. Hope to see you all in the next meeting. And that's it. Bye bye.
Thanks.
Bye bye.